Hey guys, welcome back. It has been 2 months since I last had any alcohol whatsoever. I don't know if you've noticed by my dulcet tones and my complete lack of slurring, but I am currently pretty buzzed. I finally decided to have a beer. I'm gonna have several more before the night's over. I just had something called Parabola. It's a 2017 vintage stout. It's 14.5%. It's a small little bottle though. It's like 12 fluid ounces, so really small. It's pretty good. Like I said before, I may have said it before when I've recorded my thoughts and put them on YouTube. I do like living in the beer capital of the world. At least that's what I consider this place. It's pretty goddamn close anyway. It's kind of nice. But today I wanted to talk not just about beer, not just about being drunk. I'm going to let loose a little bit and say something that's been on my mind for a bit, obviously. And that is, first off, it sucks living next to a fucking street, because every time you try to record something, somebody drives by in a truck that is 10 times too big for the place they live. None of these motherfuckers actually work in construction. None of these people have to fucking pull trailers. None of them have to throw things in the back of the truck. I wish I had a truck, is really what I'm saying. But anyway, what I wanted to say is, back when I was a kid, I lived in an era, the 80s and 90s, where people didn't have a voice, really. I mean, you said what you needed to say, you voted, whatever, and everyone had the illusion of having a voice, but we were all very aware that, you know, unless you became famous, you weren't anybody. There wasn't a hell of a lot of narcissism. There wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of cynicism, and people were really into a lot of comics and movies and TV shows that had to do with cynicism and any kind of anti-corporation bullshit, because you have to understand, back then, corporations were built by yuppies. They were built by the people who are now very popular on Facebook, Tinder, Instagram, and so on and so forth. All these people that are now commonplace were the people who were essentially running all the corporations. It wasn't old people. I mean, they're old now. But back then, they were, 20s, 30s, 40s at the latest, for the most part. Now, I mean, there were a lot of people. By that I mean a lot of people. I mean, there were old people who definitely owned a large portion of the market, but the people who were getting a lot of the work done and who were the face of a lot of the companies were young people. Like I said, 20s and 30s, in their business suits. As I said, yuppies, weekend warriors, people who went down to Florida, snorted cocaine and got really, really crazy. It's why we had crazy music. It's why we had crazy movies. There's a lot of other reasons too, but that was one of the main things, is that yuppies got really high and then they did crazy shit. And a lot of the culture that I grew up with had to do with being against that kind of thing. Not against drugs. I mean, drugs wasn't really the problem. We didn't really connect the dots until much later anyway. It was more just being against that kind of fake, self-important lifestyle that just basically chucks everyone else into the wind without a single care at all for anybody else. It is the time that Christian Bale made that movie. What was it called? It wasn't Psycho. American Psycho, yeah. I forget when that came out. I believe it came out in like 2001, 1995. It was like late 90s, early 2000s, if I recall. But that really does personify a lot of what was going on back then. Not that everybody was getting killed by people who were very rich, but just the yuppie part of it. So that's what I grew up with, is the thought that if you're poor and middle class or anything like that, the best you could really hope for in life was just to, have yourself a house, which, that's actually pretty awesome. Have yourself a house, have yourself a family. The friends and family you know are the only people who are ever going to really know you. No one's ever going to know your opinion. No one's ever going to care, except for when you vote, except for when you work. And that's it. So people put themselves into those two things when they cared at all. And the rest of the time, they just really focus on things like their career and their families and their friends and shit. Or just the drugs. Well, now we have a time where people will just open discourse with strangers. And they'll do it all the time. They'll randomly open up a conversation with somebody on the internet who appears to be nobody. They're just words on a screen, or they're just words in your ear in a video somewhere. They're not attached to a face, they're not attached to a person, as far as you know. Very few people can go, oh yeah, that word I just read is attached to a human being. It's almost impossible to really think about that. I mean, it's just, there's a huge disassociation between the person writing the words and the words themselves, almost every time. And the internet is full of that. So now we have these conversations that pop up all the time, all over the place, and that's because regular people are now suddenly able to speak their mind. And not just speak their mind, because of course, we could always do that, but now we have a chance, no matter who we are, no matter if you have charisma or not, no matter if you have an amazing body, an amazing face, or you don't, no matter if you're right or you're wrong, no matter if you have great ideas or shitty ideas, no matter if you basically copy-paste ideas from somebody else, or if you have original ideas, it does not matter. You still have a chance to be heard. It doesn't mean you will be heard. There's still that very real possibility, and it's much more possible than the alternative, that you'll just never be heard. That the signal-to-noise ratio is so out of whack that you probably will never be discovered. No one will ever hear what you have to say. Maybe your family will. Maybe they'll find your YouTube channel. Maybe your friends will find out what you had to say on Twitter. Maybe your colleagues or your schoolmates from high school or whatever will come back and read your Facebook posts at some bullshit time and see what you had for breakfast last Thursday. But for the most part, it's a very real possibility that beyond your inner circle and the people you grew up with in real life, you'll still never be heard. However, unlike in the 80s and 90s, you can become famous now without ever having to go through a studio, without ever having to go through an ad agency or get an agent, without ever having to go through any kind of production agency or a movie studio or TV series studio or anything like that. You can literally become famous without ever having to hire anyone but yourself. And that is not entirely because of YouTube, but it is in large part because of YouTube. Now, YouTube was an amazing thing when it first came out. It's still pretty amazing, but when it first came out, it was this place where you could find videos of just fucking anything. I mean, it was incredible when it first came out, back in the mid-2000s, right around then. Early 2000s, I think, even was when it first started. And back then, it was just nuts. Nobody really knew what it was, so the people who did know what it was, just like when Google came out, we were like, wow, this is really amazing, and we got a lot out of it because nobody had learned how to game the system yet. There weren't any advertisements for it yet. It was just pure entertainment. And then, Google bought YouTube, and we all thought, oh crap, it's going to go downhill, and it did a little bit, but then it became very big, so that was a trade-off. The trade-off it wasn't just a small niche market anymore. It wasn't just people who were in the know suddenly. It wasn't just them, it was everybody. It was your grandma, it was your aunt, it was your dad, it was your brother, it was your neighbor down the street, it was your coworker, it was your coworker's cat. Suddenly everybody's on YouTube. So the reason I'm making this rant is now we're at a point where, and this isn't the norm, by the way, but now we're at a point where it's becoming more common for people to stop using words. We're drifting backwards from talking to each other, from debating each other, from throwing mean words at each other on the internet, to punching each other, to throwing M80s at each other, to getting each other arrested. It's a very strange thing to me to see that millennials that are younger than me by far, by about a decade usually is how much it takes, they seem to be the kind of people who have never been bullied, who have never had to stand up for themselves, who have never actually bullied anybody else, except through proxy. A source of authority. In other words, if they had siblings and one of their siblings did something really stupid, what they would do is they'd go and tell their parents. Or, if they're at school, they'd go and tell the teacher. And then the teacher would handle it, or the parents would handle it, instead of they would handle it. When I was a kid, I went through two different phases. When I was a very young kid, we just went out and played. We did all kinds of crazy shit outside the house. I ran around my neighborhoods. I ran up and down train tracks. And now I would not be able to do that. If I was the same age as I was back then, now my parents would not let me run on the train tracks. And there's several reasons for that. One of them, of course, is that the train tracks now is full of homeless people and the more you venture away from home, there is, of course, the possibility that you can be kidnapped, or if you, not even just kidnapped, just you could run across some needles and shit and get a disease. So your parents are going to tell you not to go because they don't want you to die. And my parents are pretty cool. They're not the kind of people that even back then would be like, no, I don't want you getting hurt. It's more like, I don't want you dying. That's where they drew the line. Because they grew up in an environment that was even more, it was definitely more strict, but as far as playtime goes, it was even more hands-off than mine was. And now with the millennials that are younger than me, their parents are far more hands-on. I mean, this has been talked about a lot. It's called helicopter parenting, where the parents basically have a say or some sort of influence in everything that their kids do, all the way down to conflict management. And so what we see now is a lot of millennials just don't have the ability to talk it out with their opponents or even fight with their opponents. When I was a kid, I got into a bunch of fights. I got into a bunch of arguments. I got embarrassed. I was mortified by a bunch of different bullies. And I was a big kid, not like fat, but I mean like built well. So I didn't really get pushed around very much compared to some kids. I didn't really bully too much. I think there was one kid that me and my friend really picked on a lot, but that was because he was bigger than us. He was bigger and slower, so we were terrified of him. So what we'd do is we'd go over and call him names until he chased us, and then we'd get away from him. And then one day his friends teamed up to catch us because they talked about what we were doing to him behind closed doors and shit. And then they tricked us. It was very clever. Tricked us into running into a spot, and they came out of nowhere and stopped and grabbed us and tried to push me into some water, and it caught my friend as well. But he got away before it got too bad, and I still came back and did it the same day. But I realized after that, I just did it just to show him that, fuck you. But I stopped after that next day because I realized that I actually was hurting the guy's feelings. And I mean, I was a kid. Everybody who was that young back then, most people just did shit without really thinking about it. No matter if you're a good person or a bad person, when you're a kid, you usually don't have very much empathy. You have to be taught, that punching someone, hurting somebody, calling somebody names, doing all these things is bad because it hurts them. But I think what kids are taught now is that it's bad because the authorities say it's bad. I mean, really, that's the thing. Now it's not so much that you have personal responsibility. It's more you save face, if you look like you're the victim. You save face if you're not the bully. So if you can be a bully by making somebody else be the bully in your stead, then not only do you save face by looking like the victim, but you also get somebody to stop doing something that annoys you or that you just don't like. And that's where I'm going with this, is that it's really amazing to me that we have YouTube. It's amazing that we have Minds.com, that we have Twitch, that we have Twitter, even though I really don't like Twitter very much. It's amazing we have it. It's amazing we have Facebook, though Facebook is draconian and Orwellian as fuck, and it's a terrible, terrible platform. It's still amazing that we have it, because your average Joe, your nobody, your brigand boy, can basically get up in the morning before they go to work, or after work, get drunk, and rant, and somebody out there that they don't know might listen to them and go, I agree with this, or I disagree with this. Back in the 80s and 90s, this wasn't something that would have happened. I would have had to have gotten a ham radio, or get a van, and risk the FCC coming down on my ass because I had a pirate radio station, because that was a thing back in the day. I would have had to, hand out pamphlets, or get a soapbox and go to a street corner and yell at people. It wouldn't matter how insane or how sane I was. It doesn't matter how sane or insane I am now. Right now I have the opportunity to talk, and what's really fascinating to me is that as YouTube kind of discourages, not because they want to, but discourages people from talking about controversial subjects because they want money, the reason they're pulling out, it doesn't really matter. And the reason that YouTube is doing things now, it doesn't really matter. The fact is YouTube is cracking down on things and it's having an effect. It's weird because I've seen all of the content creators that I like, that I spend a lot of time watching. All of them have stopped have stopped producing as much as they were a mere month and a half ago. Some people, I mean, like Philip DeFranco, he still puts out about a video a day. I mean, he seems to skip over weekends, but he's got a family, so it makes sense that he'd go to his vlog channel, you know, for the weekends or whatever. And he's still a very active YouTuber, but a lot of even the bigger ones, even the ones I consider kind of active, skeptic, anti-SJW, free speech advocate, even right-wing people, even everybody, pretty much everybody has stopped. Not stopped entirely, but a lot of the channels that I like have gone from once every day or once every other day to once a week or once every 2 weeks. The motivation is gone. And it's weird because, you know, not like I don't make any money. A lot of people don't really make a lot of money off of it. But now we see that, now we see what it is that happens when you have two groups of people that disagree fundamentally in this country with the Berkeley battles, the Berkeley riots, the Berkeley battles, and cannot talk to each other. They will not talk to each other. As in there's no way for them to talk and focus on it. There was that moment where the anti-Trump Antifa guys and the pro-Trump, pro-free speech guys were talking, and one of them tried to light up a blunt of peace and somebody threw an M80 into it, and that just ended the whole negotiations. Or that kid who had the Sriracha shirt on, and he was trolling a little bit, but he was also trying to talk the Antifa kids down. And he was kneeling, he wasn't threatening at all until the woman got in his face, and by got in his face, I mean they were several feet apart from each other. They weren't right up in each other's face, but they were yelling because it was loud and they were both pretty heated, and then somebody came over from the Antifa side and hit him upside the head with a bike lock. By the way, that man has been charged, if I'm not mistaken. I read some stuff about that a week and a half ago where he got charged for assault, and so yeah, everybody knows it's him. I really do hope that he goes to jail. I hope he never teaches again. I hope he finds another means of employment. So hopefully something that lets him channel his anger into a more productive, activity, because he nearly killed somebody for something as stupid as words. And that's kind of where I'm going with it. I know we're almost 20 minutes into this crazy, stupid fucking rant of mine. But what I'm saying is, I haven't drank anything for 2 months, and I appreciate beer right now. I appreciate alcohol because I'm not a drunk. I'm not an alcoholic. That's why I stopped drinking, just to prove that I could. But man, I like beer. I like the fact that I live in a world, in an existence, in an age where I can go down and get beer from a store that doesn't taste like piss water, that will get me drunk and won't break the bank. That's something I appreciate. I also appreciate the fact that we still have YouTube, that we have Facebook, that we have Twitter, that we have Minds.com. Minds.com, by the way, probably my favorite. The format's a little shitty, but the fact that they won't censor you just because you say things that are a little outlandish, it's very appreciated. These are things that I am very happy to have because I didn't have them when I was, 9 or 10 or 18 or 17 or even 28, 26. Not really. I'm in my mid-30s now, and it's amazing to me that we have YouTube. It's amazing that we had vid.me or video.me. It's amazing to me that we have these things. It's also really amazing to me that we have young kids who are so inundated, so spoiled by it, they're so blasé about this shit that they've got, this ability to talk to strangers, this ability to put their opinions out there as if it matters when it really doesn't. They would rather go out physically into a street and punch each other or throw bricks at each other. I mean, I was there for that. What was that? That Oakland thing? Or was it not Rodney Dangerfield? That's not it at all. Oh god, the guy who got hit in the head. He was stopped in a semi in like 1994. I want to say it was before O.J. Simpson totally got like it was before that. Let me see. It was Oakland. See, now I'm looking it up. Riots. I don't know. I really don't know. We had the lowriders. Oh man, that was a long time ago. Trucker. No, stop. Trucker hit with brick during L.A. riots. I guess it must have been L.A. I want to say his name is Brown. Back then we had riots. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie by Sylvester Stallone, Demolition Man, that was predicated on an idea that eventually the violence would get so bad that the cops would have to step in with military force, like fascist force, and basically stop everyone from killing each other. And then that would bring on this crazy utopia of PC culture. And now we're seeing, without the fascist force, literally people police themselves and stop fucking rioting en masse, and they stop killing each other en masse, right? Kind of solved itself, but now we have the PC culture. And now the kids are like, well, we're missing that the militancy, we're missing the violence. We don't want to just yell at people, we don't want to just have words. I think it's a combination of kids want to appeal to an authority, they want someone to step in and make their enemies shut up, and they're missing something. They're not appreciating the fact that they can just say whatever the fuck they want. Literally say whatever they want, whenever they want, to whoever they want. I mean, within very, very broad spectrum. They can't literally say, that they want to kill somebody. They can't literally say that somebody else should kill somebody. There are a few exceptions, and if you're in a different country, of course, there's many more exceptions, but in America, we are able to say whatever we want, and we have all of these opportunities to do it. If you're a nobody, like me, on the internet, and you still have an opinion, you can still express it. You should take some time out if you haven't, and kind of appreciate that. Because at any time, it could be taken away. At any time, it could go back to the way it was in the 80s and 90s, not because, like then, where we didn't have the technology or the platforms to share our ideas and our opinions and our productions, it could turn into that same thing with all the tools still in place, all of the platforms still in place, but the policy changed to reflect a more inclusive, more diverse, more family-friendly environment. With no balls, completely safe. I think that's pretty scary, considering where we came from, considering the progress we've made. I know that it's taboo to say progressive, right? But it was progress. It was progress in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. It was progress of the mind, it was progress of ideas. And I liked that. I was enjoying the shit out of it. I'm still enjoying the shit out of it. Despite the fact that it's always in danger. It's always a crazy tightrope walk. It's always kind of a little bit unsure. At any moment, the entire thing could just fall over to the left or the right, plummet to the ground, and splat. And they would have to start over, all over again, just as if we'd never tried before. Every generation seems to be like that. Like the generation before it didn't try the same shit. Guys, appreciate what you've got. Speak up, You got YouTube, you got a good internet connection, if you've got a voice that doesn't totally suck like mine does, feel free to say what you gotta say. Even if you are told constantly by people that is pointless. Even if you are told constantly by people, any people, that what you say is wrong, say it anyway. I mean, listen to constructive criticism, but if somebody tells you that what you're saying is pointless and you should not speak, fuck them. Say it anyway. You might be right. I mean, you might be wrong. Both of them are useful. Both of them are worthwhile. Somebody might hear you. And even if somebody doesn't, you still deserve to speak. Even if there's no recipient to the letter you're writing to the world. It's still good to write. It's still good to speak. And that's it. That's my rant. Right now, we're at a spot where we're kicking the shit out of each other in stupid-ass bourgeois towns like Berkeley. We're acting like airsoft rifles and fake combat vests are a show of force. We're gonna start drilling into our national forest for fucking oil. We're not gonna build a wall unless Trump pays for it himself personally. World's a little bit fucked up, you know? So don't sit on your ass. Say something. Don't punch a Nazi. Don't punch an anti-fascist. Just say something. Speak the fuck up. You have so many ways to do it. So many ways to do it. Not just social media. But you can also make petitions. You can talk directly to the actual people that are in your government. You know, almost all of them have Twitter. Almost all of them have, well, all of them do have an email. All of them have staffers who are willing to help you out. Talk to your people who are your representatives. Absolutely. Say, hey, this shit sucks. This shit is bad. Or this shit is good. I like what you did. I don't like what you did. Don't pretend that your voice means nothing. And maybe what you say won't have an effect. Maybe you'll say it and it'll be like farting into a hurricane. But you should still say it. You should still say it. If we're going by that analogy, if you don't fart during the hurricane, it's gonna suck. You're still gonna be in pain, and there's still gonna be a hurricane going on. So you might as well fart. I don't know, that's a bad analogy. And that's gonna do for me, guys. I am drunk as fuck. I need to open up a window, and not because I farted, not in a hurricane, because it's kind of getting a little bit warm in here. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hey, if you like what I do, of course, feel free to like, subscribe, and all that wonderful junk. I will see you guys another time. Take care.